OpenAI just announced a big update, and you can now fine-tune GPT 3.5 Turbo to your own use cases. So Turbo being kind of a variation on the GPT 3.5 base model, this basically means you can customize this model to your own needs so that it performs much, much better on use cases that may be custom to your company's kind of specific needs or desires of how you want to use some of these large language models. For example, you might fine-tune GPT 3.5 Turbo to better understand text that's highly specific to your industry or business. You could also fine-tune models to sound more like your brand when they create their outputs, or you might even have it remember specific examples or preferences when producing outputs. So you don't have to spend all these resources and bandwidth creating highly complex prompts like every single time you're using this model. OpenAI actually says that, quote, early tests have shown a fine-tuned version of GPT 3.5 Turbo can match or even outperform base GPT-4 level capabilities on certain narrow tasks. They also note in the announcement of this fine-tuning that fine-tuning for GPT-4 will be coming in the fall. So, Paul, first off, why is the ability to fine-tune models like this such a big deal?
So the models themselves are kind of general or horizontal is the way to think about it. Like they're trained on the same data sets that everybody has access to. So again, like go back to the Books 3 example. Let's say all the major models used Books 3, they're all trained on that. Now think of taking a foundation model and being able to train it just on your specific data, just on the way you want things done, just on your proprietary access around customers or data sets within your organization. So now you can really make them much more personalized for your organization. I will say this is not like as a marketer or a CEO of a company, you're not going to go do this yourself. This isn't like a feature in ChatGPT where you turn on and now you can just start doing this. This is like if you access their API, this is more for the developer audience, basically. If you access their API, you're now able to do a whole bunch more fine tuning. And supposedly your data stays your data, according to what they're saying. So this was something that was a really big deal for the developer group last week. You saw a lot of conversation around this, and the ability for GPT-4 in the fall is a huge deal because basically these models that are already impressive, when you can give them proprietary data, they seem to get much more valuable in terms of what they can do for your organization. So I think that this is, we've talked about before, like these ability to kind of create these vertical versions of these models or these ones that are personalized to your organization is sort of the next unlock for them. And I think we're going to be racing toward that kind of capability moving into the second half of 2023.
So if I'm a business leader or marketing leader, I'm not fine-tuning models myself, but as I'm thinking about bigger AI strategy, what are some of the top use cases in marketing and business that I might have for fine-tuning large language models in, concert with a developer or hiring someone to help me do this?
I mean, a good way to think about this is if you go into GPT-4 and ask it to write an email for you, it's going to write a really good email. Or if you ask it to write a letter, from your CEO, it's going to write something that seems like a decent letter. Or if you ask it to do like a landing page for your company, it's going to develop a decent landing page. But now imagine you could train it on your 20 best performing emails or the last 5 letters that your CEO actually wrote, or video scripts that have performed really well, or the top performing landing pages. So now what you're able to do is not just train it on data, but like performance-based data and things that are specific to your organization. That's the difference here. That's what we're talking about, is the ability to have these things really start to learn based on things that have previously worked or things that are specific to your organization that starts to differentiate the content it's going to create. Do it in certain tones, styles, things like that. That's what we're looking at here, is when you start to look at these marketing or business use cases where language is created, that it's actually tailored to the kinds of content your organization wants to put out. Not if we all go and give the same prompt to GPT-4 to write a letter and give it the exact same thing, it's going to sound roughly the same. The words aren't going to be exactly the same, but it's going to roughly look the same. But now if you say, but write it like these 20 emails and use this tone, that's where you start to get differentiated with the content that it outputs.
Do you think that having this ability to fine tune some of the OpenAI base models will lead to, say, bigger enterprises getting more involved with building on top of OpenAI's ecosystem of models?
And that's the great question we've seen before is like there's so many options now with these models. You can go to an open source one like Llama 2. You can go to Amazon and get access to Anthropic's Claude and Cohere and Amazon Titan. You can, so whether you build with like proprietary closed models or you build with open source models, that's the debate right now in a lot of these enterprises is what do we do? And generally what I keep seeing more and more of is you're likely going to have a symphony of models. It's probably not going to be a single model for every company. You may have a customer service language model that's trained on customer service data. You may have one that's specific to the healthcare industry that's more for the operations side of the business, the medical practice side. This is the part where we're not certain what this landscape looks like, but it seems like we're moving in a direction of multiple language models that are kind of tuned for the organization and the use cases, and then ideally kind of access the same databases so they have access to proprietary data that feeds them and continues to build them and their capabilities for your organization and for you individually. Like there may be a language model that learns you, and that's kind of like that inflection pi is the example there, where it starts to learn the conversations you individually have. So I think there's like a personal aspect to this, and then there's the business aspect.